The NBA on Thursday always has these drafts, and I am not too fond of the NBA draft because I just think it's boring. It really is, because it's not like the NFL. It's not even like the NHL, because the NHL makes it into extravaganza. They have two big things that they always look forward to, the NHL. The NHL finals in the playoffs, and then obviously their draft. That's it. The NBA's got a bunch of stuff. They have the All-Star game. The NHL All-Star game, they watch the hardest shot and stuff like that. Nobody cares about the NHL All-Star game. Nobody watches it. They've changed the rules. They changed the games. They do 3-on-3 now, 4-on-4. They East versus West. This team, Metropolitan versus that. I mean, they're changing something every single year just to try to draw fans to watch it. The NBA, they have their All-Star weekend. They have the slam dunk. They have the three-point contest. The NBA draft is never something that really stands out unless there's a big star or big stars in the draft. Now, this year's draft I wouldn't say had the bright light stars that you would expect. I mean, obviously, they had Cade Cunningham, and everybody knew the Detroit Pistons were going to draft him. We knew that like 2-3 weeks ago that he was going to Detroit, unless they were going to trade out of that pick, which there were teams reaching out to him. One of those teams I did hear possibly were the Knicks. They were trying to move up to that number one spot. I don't know what they would have given up. Probably their whole life. I mean, to get something like that, to move all the way from 19 or 21, you would have to give away all your 5 or 6 first-round draft picks for the next 5-6 years to get somebody like Cade Cunningham. But Cade went 1, wasn't a surprise. Now, Green was something, I believe Jalen Green was the best player in this year's draft. Reminds me of a better James Harden, a guy that has some flair. He can shoot. Better shooter than James Harden, much better shooter than James Harden. Very accurate. The weakness of Jalen Green is really his defense. He doesn't play defense. That's not a surprise to me in the NBA because nobody does, except maybe 3 or 4 or 5 guys.
Hey, he might already be better than James Harden.
Oh, yeah, I think well, people say that he's better than a lot of these players coming out of the draft when they did. And I was surprised that Toronto didn't go with Suggs because to me, he was the better player. Barnes, I know when we talked to Jeff on Sports Loudmouths, he thought that Barnes fits better with the Toronto Raptors than obviously Suggs because they already have a point guard in Van Vliet. But going into the later rounds, a lot of people thought that the Knicks were going to try to move up. There were stories coming out early Thursday morning that the Knicks were trying to make a move with the Golden State Warriors since they had 2 first-round draft picks, both of them in the lottery, which is surprising when they look at the talent that they have on their team.
Nobody said the Timberwolves were smart.
The Knicks were trying to move up to 14 because they were interested in
Chris Duarte.
Who went to Indianapolis, 13. So even if the Knicks moved up to 14, they weren't getting him because he was going to Indiana. So, unfortunately, I think the Knicks kind of figured that Indiana was going to do that. That's why they probably weren't pushing for it. It's very, very hard to move up from 19 to 21 in the NBA and not give away a lot of assets. Now, I don't know what Duarte could be. He could be the best player in this draft with his shooting.
He was one of the best prospects coming into the college basketball season. He was just in a very team-oriented system, so he didn't get to showcase as well as a lot of the other top picks.
Yep. So I think he's going to do very well in Indiana, and they need another star because we've seen a bunch of players go in and go out of Indiana. Maybe, obviously, Rick Carlisle is there, and Rick Carlisle, I think, is one of the most condescending coaches in the NBA. A very good defensive-minded coach that preaches defense first, offense second. And we've seen this. All these defensive-minded coaches, the Tom Thibodeaus of the world, the Rick Carlisles of the world, they have been successful in the NBA. So going into the Knicks picks, and I hate the NBA for this. They let the team pick the player after you hear that they were trading out of those picks. You heard at 19, the Knicks were trading out before the pick even came in. Why are they wearing a Knicks hat? I don't understand that. I don't understand how the NBA allows that. It would piss me off as a player that the first thing that you experience, the shot, the picture that you get at the NBA when you're shaking the Adam Silvers of the world, and I say Adam Silvers because sometimes he has a split personality. It's either good or terrible. Adam Silver, you want to see the team that draft you, that you're going to be playing for the next 5-6 years, or maybe even longer. So you're wearing a Knicks hat, okay? It doesn't make sense. So the Knicks went at 19, they drafted Speedy.
Keon Johnson.
And they traded it to who, Speedy?
The
Clippers. Now, I don't know much about Keon Johnson. All I know is he has a great mind, offensive mind, in his ability to put the ball in the net. He doesn't have a great shot. That was something that I was reading about him. Very mobile guy, has an unbelievable vertical leap. which I think he had the highest vertical leap in this draft. I think it was like 48 inches or some crazy number, which we've seen a lot of great vertical leap jumpers in this league, very successful. The Vince Carters of the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Dominique Wilkins of the world. I can name more. Even Isaiah Ryder, who wasn't a great pro, but he was a decent pro. Another great vertical leap. So he could be a very good player. If he goes to the right team. I don't know if the Clippers are the right team. Trust me, Tyrone Lue is not something to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to learn from this guy. He wasn't a great NBA player, and I don't think he's a very good coach. So we'll see what he turns out to be. And then at 21, they traded down again. And who did they trade that pick to, Speedy?
They traded down with OKC. They got some extra second-round picks in order to that. And
did OKC really need that pick? I mean, seriously, they
didn't all the picks they could get at this point.
They're 5 first-round draft picks this year.
Well, yeah, but they didn't all the picks they could get with all the players they traded away and all the rebuilding.
They probably drafted their whole starting lineup. I mean, and all of them were practically foreign players.
Right.
OKC signed, drafted for. So it's crazy. But who did they draft?
They drafted a Turkish center. After they trade Steven Adams, an Australian center, they drafted a Turkish center. I can't even pronounce his name. After they drafted an Australian point guard at number 6. So they're going like this all international route again, like we saw the Mavericks seem like they were doing for a while. And the Knicks ended up with that back-end pick getting Quentin Grimes, a Houston wing player.
Which I liked.
Who I like too. I like a lot. I thought he was more like that mid-first round pick. I'm surprised he fell that far at the back end of that draft. He could be kind of like that 6-man type in this rotation right away. And I think he could develop into a starter too. He is a very good shooter, and he's got good vision on the court too. He's not a pure point guard, but he's got good passing ability, good vision on the court.
I don't think they're going to use him as a point guard.
No,
I think their plan
wouldn't
is to go after somebody in free agency.
No, I wouldn't expect them to. I think he's going to be kind of like a 6-man type, at least at this season, and kind of develop into a starter later on.
I think it could be a starter, and who knows? He could turn out to be another Quigley, which we saw what he did last year. I think he was, to me, he was rookie of the year most of the year. I know they gave it to Ball because LaMelo is like that star, quote unquote, LeVar Ball, the Ball boys, and great. But he shouldn't have won. To me, he didn't play enough games to win rookie of the year. I think Quigley.
Yeah, I also thought Anthony Edwards.
In the
second half, I thought he should have won.
A lot of these guys could have won over LaMelo Ball, but they gave it to LaMelo Ball. Good for him. But there's a lot of good players and quality players that were drafted, even in the second round. The Knicks actually traded down. They had a couple of second-round draft picks. One of them, a very good defender on the wing, which they've been craving for a very, very long time.
The number 34 pick, one of the Thunder's picks, was a Lithuanian guard, Rokas Jokubaitis, something like that. I don't know how that's pronounced. Then number 36, same thing from the Thunder, Miles McBride, a guard from
McBride was the guy that
West Virginia, who was kind of a streaky player throughout the year, but was one of their better wing players, though, as a whole. And then late in the draft, they went with a Texas player who I'm not crazy about in Jericho Sims.
I don't think he's even going to make the team.
He's probably not going to make the team. If anything, he might be just a defensive specialist if he does, but I don't think he'll make the team. He's a very weird prototype and was a good college player, but again, he's a very weird prototype for the NBA. I doubt he'll make the team either.
And I'm not surprised that the Nets were going to make every possible move to build their team around this year's draft because they're not going to have a lot of money to go after free agents. They're going to have to pay James Harden this offseason. They paid Kyrie Irving. They paid, obviously, Kevin Durant. What are they going to do with Blake Griffin? Is he planning to come back? I doubt it. He's going to want some money. He's going to want a significant amount of money. So what did the Brooklyn Nets do, Speedy? Obviously, they drafted the LSU point guard.
Yeah, Cam Thomas. I actually liked that pick a lot. He was part of an offense that was 7th in the nation last year, and he could play point guard and shooting guard, which they definitely need. I also like their second-round pick, the kid from Creighton, Marcus Zegorowski, too, who's been the last 2 years really a very steady, good shooter type, good range. I think he has probably kind of like what I was saying with Grimes. He'll probably be kind of like their 6th-man type player when he develops. I don't think right away because I think obviously Joe Harris is still there. They traded Landry Shamet, though, which was very interesting as well, being that they don't have a lot of bench depth as it is. That was very surprising.
They're going to use young guys.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to do.
They took that to make other picks out. Kessler Edwards, another one, and Raekwon Gray, who I don't think they'll make the team either. But I like Zegorowski and I like Thomas. They got good value considering they didn't have a lot of picks to work with, and obviously we know how cash-strapped they are with all those big contracts.
So that's why they really strapped themselves, and I think these guys you're going to see a lot of this year playing with Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving. They might be able to bring in one veteran minimal type of player.
Yeah.
They still have Jordan on a team, which is still a very bad contract. He doesn't play that much. So I don't know where they're going to go as far as free agents concerned. So they had to do well in this year's draft, and they added two really good quality players. We'll see what they turn out to be. You just don't know with the NBA. You don't know what they're going to turn out out to be.
Right.
But what we've heard, they could be two fantastic players.
It's interesting the Nets didn't go a little more size, though, because the Nets don't have a lot of it right now. Nick Claxton was their primary center a lot of the year, even over DeAndre Jordan. He's very lanky, very thin. He's a good shot blocker, but again, doesn't really have the brute strength to face off against other NBA centers. So I'm surprised they didn't at least go with maybe some kind of specialist as a center, at least to help out their defense, because which we know is atrocious.
And I'll tell you why the Knicks won this year's draft, because they didn't get the player that they wanted. They tried to move up to get him, and they couldn't do it. So what did they get at 19? They got Charlotte's future first-round draft pick, which means that Charlotte, are they a playoff-bound team? They're not, okay? They could be a lottery team next. If Charlotte bombs this year in the offseason, they don't bring any free agents, they just have Ball again, they have all these young players, and they're rebuilding. This team could be a lottery team. It could be a top 5, top 6 team. And the Knicks are going to be a good team this year. They're going to be a borderline playoff-bound team because they were a 4th seed last year. So what does that do for the Knicks? Well, the Knicks don't have to worry about playing hard this year and trying to win. You know why? Because they got Charlotte's pick, where Charlotte's pick could be a huge pick. If Charlotte's a bad team this year, let's say Ball gets hurt and he's out for a significant amount of time, Charlotte could be a top 3 pick. And the Knicks could steal that pick because I don't think it's protected.
Yeah, I think it's only protected in the top 2 or something like that. But again, they're kind of mediocre all the time. They're never the worst team in the league, but they're very rarely a playoff team, floating on average for a while. Now they're getting younger finally with guys like P.J. Washington and Miles Bridges and guys like that. But the Knicks are going to still probably get a top 10 pick because you got to imagine these other teams that were picking in the lottery are going to get at least somewhat better. I mean, these top 5 picks, a lot of these guys can be instant impact guys, where the Hornets really, they've drafted very weird year in and year out. James Boatnight, too, they drafted the number 11, is very raw, too. I can't expect him to make an impact right away either. So I think they'll be I'd be looking at the Knicks pick as maybe being somewhere 8 through 11 or something like that, maybe even 6. I don't know if it'll be top 3, but I definitely.
No, but you can get yourself
a
top
nice
player for that.
For sure.
And all you had to do was trade the 19th pick. Did Charlotte win in this draft? No, I don't think they did. I think they did bad. I think they did very bad. Now, they had 2 first-round draft picks this year, and now they gave up a possible lottery pick that could be a top 3, maybe a 4 or 5 pick next year going into next year's draft, which is pretty strong next year. I don't think it's this year strong with the depth, but you're drafting at 7 or 8. You're going to get yourself a good player. I think the Knicks had to do that. I think that was really what solidified this year's draft, not the fact that they got Grimes. We don't know what Quentin Grimes could be. Quentin Grimes could be a star. He could be an all-star in this league. He's got the ability to be that. He's a great shooter. He's got a lot of length at the shooting guard position, and he can shoot all over the court. He's a career in college, I think, 43% three-point shooter. I mean,
good free throw shooter, too.
Yes, he's a good shooter, and that's what the Knicks need, wing shooters. That's what they need. So to add somebody of that magnitude, and they added Quigley last year, I think this team is going to be very young and very up and coming. I really do believe that. As a Knicks fan, you should be nothing but excited because Rose didn't do anything stupid. He didn't trade away any pieces that really just made you shake your head for a veteran player. Right now, the Knicks are still moving in position to be successful, and they've got over $50-some-odd million this offseason if they want to add 2 superstars to play with these young players. So maybe Kawhi Leonard, maybe Damian Lillard, maybe Chris Paul, maybe somebody else.
Bradley Beal.
Yeah, they could get 2 out of those guys. And they still have Julius Randle there, which could really solidify their team if they get that. And if they can keep R.J. Barrett, you're talking about a very talented team. So I'm very excited to see what the Knicks do